It's week 8, but Gallia Academy and Warren are still in search of their first win, and something had to give tonight when they faced off against each other. Plus, in our game of the week, the Sheridan Generals were looking to do the impossible, which is take down TriValley. Plus, Jackson and Meigs had some non-conference action against each other, and it's all up next
on Gridiron Glory!
It's week 8 and we've got a lot of ground to cover. I'm your host, Justin Holbrook. We're halfway through the month of October, which means, believe it or not, there are only 2 games left in the regular season. Some teams are starting to hit their stride just in time for a late playoff push. Now, the season hasn't gone according to plan for Wahama or South Gallia, who are both sitting at 3-4 on the season. However, a win tonight would keep hopes alive for one of these teams to finish above 500, Nick.
Yeah, they still have plenty of motivation, and why shouldn't they? For Wahama, they're trying to avoid recording a sub-500 season for the first time since the 2005 season. Now, the night was also very meaningful in a different way for South Gallia. The team honored the passing of longtime PA announcer Wayne Harrison before the game. Our thoughts are definitely with the South Gallia community. Now, South Gallia quarterback Landon Hutchinson opened up the game strong for South Gallia, made Wayne proud. Third play of the game, takes off for a 62-yard rush. They would score 2 plays later. South Gallia leads 6-0. Wahama's ensuing drive would take a little longer, but Jared Nutter scored on the 9th play of the drive. 16-yard run with the PAT puts Wahama up 7-6. Now South Gallia would answer. Wahama slowed them down a little bit and forced a 4th and 1, but Johnny Sheets rumbles 16-yard touchdown of his own, 13-7 South Gallia. Now Wahama opens up the playbook here on the next drive. Halfback pass from Nutter to Ricky Bobby Kearns for 57 yards. Wahama appears to be in business again, but a holding call on the ensuing play would back them up. And then miscommunication here on the pitch puts the ball on the carpet. Johnny Sheets scoops it up for South Gallia, and the defense holds. The defenses would actually trade some stops on the next 2 drives, but midway through the second quarter, on South Gallia's first play of the drive, Isaiah Geiger puts a little separation on the scoreboard. 72-yard run for Geiger, just one of South Gallia's massive weapons. 2-point conversion is good. Rebels lead 21-7. They would lead 21-13 at the half, and they would go on to win in the second half. 54-19 is the final spread.
Well, Nick, it looked like this was an offensive showcase. Did the defense do anything positive?
Well, until they gave up a touchdown at the end of the half, the South Gallia defense actually looked fairly strong for most of the half. We saw what Isaiah Geiger could do on the offensive side of the ball, but some of his most electric plays of the night came up on big hits in Wahama's backfield. The Rebel defense did a good job against the Wahama rushing attack, and the White Falcons were forced to put it in the air to move the ball.
So Wahama falls to 3-5 on the season, which means that they will finish the season at 500 or below for the first time since 2005. So what's different from this Wahama team that the powerhouse we're used to seeing?
Well, they're very young, and they don't have a go-to explosive threat on offense that they've had in recent years. There were moments where Wahama's passing attack seemed to really be maturing before our eyes tonight, and with time they'll get there, but for now they're still building that consistency.
So with this win, South Gallia has now strung together 2 consecutive wins. A run to the playoffs seems out of the question, but they still have a chance to finish with a winning record.
They do, and even if the playoffs and a Hawking title are out of reach, they'll send their large senior class out on a positive note. 13 of their 28 roster spots are seniors, including Landon Hutchinson and Isaiah Geiger.
Well, that was a good win for South Gallia, and they definitely needed it. So once again, South Gallia gets back to 500 with a 35-point win tonight. Wahama's defense really couldn't do anything to stop these guys.
Obviously, you can see the damage that Hutchinson and Geiger can do together. A combined 427 yards and 4 touchdowns. It doesn't matter if Wahama stacks the box like they did. These guys have the breakaway speed to get in the end zone if they find a wrinkle.
Well, like I said, a big win for South Gallia. Thanks a lot, Nick. Now, as the season winds down, we're going to get closer and closer to the playoffs. And now is the best time to find out which teams have the best shot at making the playoffs and where they stack up against other teams in their conference. The only place to find that is on our website at woub.org, with conference breakdowns and videos featuring our reporters and online host Andrew Homan. Andrew will be on our show later to bring you the top tweets from this week. And be sure to like Gridiron Glory on Facebook. Plus, later in the show, I'll reveal our 2 Snapchats of the week. The last time the Wellston Rockets beat Athens was back in 2008. And with both teams standing at 4-3, it looked like the Rockets had a chance to end that losing streak, Marisa.
They definitely stayed competitive tonight, Justin. Both had a reason to fight. With the playoffs coming up, every win matters, and the team who won tonight could make the playoffs with a win. Athens and Wellston kept it close tonight, meaning they would have to come out of the half focused. And let me tell you, that Wellston crowd helped Wellston as they jumped out to an early lead. Wellston scored twice at the beginning of both drives. So
they got off to a really good start.
Yeah, both drives took a combined total of less than 1 minute. Quarterback Braden Wommeldorf ran it in for a score, and later in the third, Nick Hawks ran for an 89-yard touchdown to put the Golden Rockets ahead of the Bulldogs. Justin, I think that's the top play of the night right there.
So what about Athens? They clearly had a reason to win this game as well. What were they trying to do to win tonight?
Well, their game plan tonight was Zakiah Saltzman. The Bulldogs gave him the ball anytime they needed some yardage, and that was often. He did have some trouble breaking through Wellston's line, but in the end, Saltzman ended the night with 47 carries for 368 yards and scored 4 touchdowns for the Bulldogs. In the end, it came down to who could keep going the longest. This game went into overtime, and Athens pulled from behind to win the game 50-42.
So like you mentioned, an overtime win, but it's still a win. And speaking of Athens winning, last week the Bulldogs beat Megs in the TVC Ohio, giving them their first loss in the TVC Ohio. And tonight, the Marauder fans were eager to get back in the win column, but had a tall task against the red-hot Jackson Ironmen.
Okay, so we're out here in Megs, and I'm trying to find my next fan of the week, and I made my way over to the band to see what they had in store for us.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Ooga chaka, ooga, ooga, ooga chaka, ooga, ooga, ooga.
Hey, let's go Big Red!
Whether you lose, win, tie, you're playing for your city, you're playing for your hometown, so that's the best part about it.
It doesn't matter what the score is as long as we're on top. You know?
There you go.
I would never move away. Okay. Yeah, I'll be here until I die.
So we're out here for Megs' game against Jackson, and I'm here with Cody, and he is by far Megs' craziest fan, so he's our next fan of the week.
Plenty of teams are trying to make a push for their conference titles. Michael Drapcho joins me now. And Michael, the Jackson Ironmen and Megs Marauders are no exception.
As you mentioned, Justin, both of these teams are in the hunt for their conference titles, and even though this wasn't a conference game, it still had some huge implications because they were trying to get some momentum going towards the end of the season. Now, Megs coming up knowing that they have to regroup from their loss to Athens last week, but it didn't start well for them. Johnny Farley takes a handoff 70 yards. That made it 7-0 in favor of Jackson. The Ironmen were just killing the Megs defense tonight on the ground, running all over them. Austin Leach on the next possession for Jackson takes a jet sweep, picks up 10 yards in the first down, and I think you're going to see a little bit more Leach on the next play. Hunter Sexton going deep, and he just drops a dime to Leach for the 31-yard touchdown pass. That made it 13-0 in favor of Jackson. And this was the kind of night for Megs. Hunter Sexton on 4th and 3 takes off, picks up 23 yards, fumbles, but Megs still can't recover the fumble, so Jackson's still in business. Hunter Sexton later in the drive from the 35-yard line can't be stopped, takes it into the end zone. That made it 19-0 Jackson. And Megs finally showing some life at the end of the first half with Cody Bartram going deep to Colton Lilly for a 56-yard pass. Lilly gets dragged down deep inside Jackson territory, and Megs scored 2 plays later, but all for naught because Jackson went on to win 47-6 tonight.
So Michael, it seemed like Jackson was unstoppable. What was working for them tonight?
Well, I mean, I'm tempted to say just about everything. It was a chippy, physical game tonight, and that seemed to play into Jackson's hands, especially with how physical the Ironmen are in their running game. You know, the running game was what was really key for Jackson tonight, and their offensive line clearly won the battle up front. It didn't make a difference who was carrying the ball for Jackson because they were running through some huge holes. A lot of times, Jackson runners weren't even touched until they reached the secondary. The Marauders just had no answer on defense tonight. Colin Massey, Johnny Farley, and Blake McCoy combined for 340 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. And as a team, the Ironmen rushed for 550 yards.
Wow, so 550 yards. So if everything was working for Jackson tonight, it's probably safe to say that nothing was working for Megs.
Yeah, that's pretty fair, Justin. with the exception of their last drive to end the first half, they just couldn't get anything going. I mentioned that Jackson won the battle of the trenches on offense, but they won it on defense tonight too. Megs only had 57 rushing yards in the entire game, and like the Jackson runners were getting to the second level of the defense, Megs runners were getting hit within 1 or 2 yards of the line of scrimmage on every run. You have to give credit to this Jackson defense because it absolutely swarmed Megs ball carriers.
So this is clearly a big win for Jackson and a big loss for Megs. Where do these two teams go from here?
Well, for Jackson, this gives them some serious momentum heading down the stretch. This marks 2 straight big wins for the Ironmen, and they are peaking at the right time. And for Megs, they'll have to regroup next week against Wilson. But their saving grace for this game, though, it wasn't a conference game, so they didn't lose any ground in the TVC Ohio race.
So 2 big wins back-to-back, like you said. Thanks for the great work, Michael. Now, last year, the MVL title belonged to the team, to TriValley for 4 years in a row, excuse me. The last team to win was in 2010. That team, the Sheridan Generals. After a huge upset win over Maysville in Week 6, the Generals had themselves in the perfect spot to reclaim the MVL when they took on the Scotties tonight. Later on in the show, we'll have Megan Stamper live from Sheridan to see if the Generals could go to the top of the conference for the first time since 2010. Going right back over to the TVC Ohio, our next pit stop for Extra Points this week was out in Albany. Patrick Klinger joins me now. And Patrick, historically, the Spartans have struggled against Nelsonville York.
Well, you know, Alexander riding this 5-game winning streak right now. But Justin, let me hit you with a stat real quick. In 43 meetings, the Spartans are just 41-1 against Nelsonville York. You know, you heard that right, Justin. Just 1 win.
So looking at these two teams in the standings, this seemed like it was an easy game to pick.
Well, you know, I thought this was going to be a kind of a trap game for Alexander. You know, they're used to winning as of late, but they're used to winning as of late, and this Nelsonville York team, 1-6, you know, that record does not reflect the type of talent that they have on this team, but I couldn't have been more wrong. Coach Alex Penrod had his guys focused and ready going into this game. They scored 3 touchdowns in the first quarter with ease and just shut down the Buckeyes offensively, and they cruised to a 36-0 win.
And we always seem to find ourselves talking about the same senior, Mason Chapman, and he had another big game tonight.
Well, that's right. You know, last week he had 3 touchdowns, so to celebrate, he brought his offensive line over to his house this past week for dinner. So what did he do this week? He went and scored 3 more touchdowns. You know, he's been absolutely unstoppable over this winning streak.
So it may have been a blowout, but this one was especially significant, Patrick.
Well, that's right. You know, not only did they get their 2nd ever victory against Nelsonville York, but, you know, this win clinches a share of the TVC Ohio title for these guys.
So what's next for Alexander then?
Well, you know, they got a big matchup with Trimble next week, and that's going to be a huge game to prepare them for the playoffs, but it all comes down to Week 10, Justin. You know, if they can beat Megs, and I think that they will be alone as the TVC Ohio champions.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing who's going to win the TVC Ohio. And with Alexander win over the Buckeyes tonight, the Spartans are now 5-0 in the TVC Ohio. With Alexander, Athens, River Valley, and Megs all fighting for the Doc Croner Trophy, Clay, this is quite the season we have in the TVC Ohio.
Listen, it's crazy. This is why high school football in this area is so great. This has been one of the most competitive seasons in the TVC Ohio in a recent memory. In a conference that has been dominated by Athens and Nelsonville York in recent years, there are 4 teams fighting for the Doc Croner Trophy this season.
And the Spartans actually finished 3-3 in the conference last year, but Coach Penrod has this team on top right now at 5-0. What do they need to do to win the trophy?
Well, with their win tonight, the Spartans win at least a share of their first ever TVC Ohio crown. But to take it home for themselves, they need to beat Megs in 2 weeks. Next week, they take a break from conference play when they take on Trimble at home. That's a tough non-conference game to play. But despite the outcome of that game, they will have to bounce back at Megs, which will decide if they share the Doc Croner Trophy or not.
So talking about Megs, they lost to a very good Jackson team tonight. How will this affect them going forward?
Losing to Jackson doesn't hurt their title chances. With Alexander's win tonight, Megs can now only get a share of the TVC Ohio title if they win out. Megs have Wellston next week before the final game against Alexander. Wellston will pose a threat to the Marauders, but I think Megs wins that game. Then the game between Megs and Alexander will decide if Megs can get a share of that TVC Ohio crown for themselves.
So Clay, the Doc Croner Trophy currently resides in the Plains, but after a rough start to the season, the Bulldogs find themselves back in the hunt for the TVC Ohio.
Well, the Bulldogs won their 4th straight game tonight with their win over Wellston, and they are now 3-1 in the TVC Ohio. But the Bulldogs have the toughest challenge ahead of them. The Bulldogs can only share the Doc Croner Trophy, but they have to go through River Valley and Nelsonville York. The Bulldogs need to win both of those games to get a share. And Justin, at the beginning of the season, we thought this Athens-NY game would once again decide who goes home with a Doc Croner Trophy. But as the saying goes, that's why they play the games.
Well, I'm looking forward, like I told Pat, to who wins this game and who wins the TVC Ohio. So thanks a lot, Clay. Now, shifting gears, we'll make our way over from the TVC Ohio to the SEOAL. Jackson wasn't the only team playing in some non-conference action as the Logan Chieftains took on St. Francis de Sales. Both teams came into this game with a 6-1 record after Logan lost to Jackson last week. The Chieftains were out to redeem that loss, but Logan couldn't find any success against the Stallions. DeSales had its way with Logan tonight, blowing out the Chieftains 44-7. Now, two teams in the SEOAL that have remained winless all the way up to this week were the Warren Warriors and Gallia Academy Blue Devils. Danny Dean joins us now to tell us who could finally get one in the win column.
Yeah, well, both teams were hungry for that win, Justin. The Blue Devils and the Warriors, they laid it all on the field tonight, but I can't give away the winner just yet. Now, it was Gallia Academy's breast cancer awareness game, and fans paid tribute to loved ones on the field during halftime. But now for some football. The Warriors offense started off strong in the first quarter. We see Alex Mills, he gets connected from his quarterback, Bryce Gandy, and then Gandy, he takes it himself, escapes the pressure, and sprints down the sideline to move those chains. But if we want to talk about a dominant quarterback, here is Cole Carter after a high snap. Carter storms through the middle for a 9-yard gain, and right there was how the Blue Devils moved the rest of the night. Now, the field and Carter, he has talent, but he can't do everything. Right there, you see he gets intercepted by Jake Davis, but the Warriors will go 4-and-out after a Gallia Academy drive. Carter, he does what he does best, and he bulldozes his way into the end zone for a 15-yard touchdown, and the Blue Devils led 7-0 with 5 minutes left. Now, after that, they were off to the races. Just 5 plays later, Gallia Academy forces a fumble. Brett Hively, he was there to recover it, and he takes it 64 yards to the house. Not a scratch on him. The Blue Devils go up 13-0 going into halftime. Now, top of the third quarter, Carter switched it up on us. He started slinging bullets. He hit Devin Henry for a 6-yard gain. Just a few plays later, he throws it to Matt Bailey and runs it to the 9-yard line, and that set up some deja vu as Carter hit Bailey in the end zone for a 17-yard touchdown pass. Right after that, the Blue Devils led 19-0 at the top of the third, and they went on to win 31-14 for their first win of the season. Now, Carter, he was responsible for 4 of the Blue Devils' 5 touchdowns. Now, Jake Davis for the Warriors, he punched in both their touchdowns from 1 yard out, but that clearly was not enough to get that win, and I'm sure Gallia Academy, they're going to be celebrating tonight.
Well, I bet they are. So after how many times I heard number 5's name, it's really no surprise he was the key player tonight.
Oh yeah, Justin, I have to say, it was the Cole Carter show tonight at Memorial Field. He was the main reason Gallia Academy got that win tonight. He's what I like to call a dual threat quarterback. He constantly faced pressure from Warren in their tough rush attack, and he still took it down the field. At the beginning of the third, like I said, he proved to us that his arm can be a weapon. Now, if the Blue Devils, they drove 51 yards down the field, almost solely passing. Now, if he had some stronger receivers, they would definitely be a threat through the air.
And both of these teams have struggled throughout the season. Was that obvious tonight on the field, Danny?
Yeah, I have to say there were some messy mistakes for both Warren and Gallia Academy. It was incomplete pass, bad snap after false start penalty, and at the start of the game, neither team could get anything going. I mean, no one was near the end zone until the middle of the second quarter. Warren didn't even get on the board until the fourth quarter, but hey, even though it was a messy win, Gallia Academy has to feel good to finally get that win.
Well, I bet that's the first one of the season, so I'm sure they have smiles on their faces. Thanks a lot, Danny. Now, I mentioned it a few minutes ago, and here he is. Andrew Homan joins us live from the newsroom. And Andrew, I know it's hard to pick just 2, but which tweets stood out to you the most?
Justin, I actually cheated a little bit this week. I'm featuring Coco, who was live tweeting from the Wahama South Gallia game. Coco was all about the emojis and that hashtag cash money. There was plenty of cash money in the Rebels' 31-14 win over the White Falcons. Our next tweet comes from Jordan Leisure of Amanda Clear Creek. From freshman year until now, I have not missed but a single start in the pit. Now I get ready to have my last with my brothers, PTW. His final start in the pit was memorable as the Aces upset Logan Elm 29-28. Big congrats to Amanda Clear Creek. And playoffs are just 3 weeks away, folks. Make sure that you head over to woub.org/gridiron on Monday for the AP rankings, and again on Tuesday for the OHSAA computer ratings for each region. With some of the most crucial games of the season coming up, we are making sure you don't miss our show. Log on to our website, Facebook, or Twitter Friday night, and the link will be right there for our live YouTube stream. Trust me, you do not want to miss our show these next few weeks, and you don't have to.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. The Zane Trace Pioneers have posted a 7-0 record up to this point and stand as the lone undefeated team left in our coverage area. Today, they took the road to face off against Piketon. So, Eric, what happened in tonight's game?
As you know, playoff time is pressure time. But luckily, pressure builds diamonds, and that is exactly what Zane Trace is. They went into Piketon today and dominated just like they have all year long. It will be a tougher challenge for the Pioneers, though. Starting quarterback Joel Dunkel, who led the team with 12 rushing touchdowns and 2 100-yard games before he got hurt in the win against TriValley, would not play due to a sprained ankle. So we saw Austin Harris under center tonight. But it ultimately didn't matter. Their foundation lies with their running game. As a team, they average 250 yards on the ground, and you never know who will start. Today, it was Truman Love. But don't let the name fool you. A man amongst boys. He keeps those shoulder pads low, and it takes 2 or 3 or more people to bring him down every time he touches the ball. This man is a key piece to the puzzle in general, but he was a key to this opening drive that ended with a 14-yard rushing touchdown by Alex Wolf, a.k.a. Wolfie. But you aren't undefeated in most cases with just offense, Justin.
So did Zane Trace show this same dominance on defense as well?
Overwhelmingly dominant on defense. Wolfie and Mr. Love anchor a defense that has allowed 35 points in the last 7 games. On Zane Trace's first defensive possession, they caused a turnover on down that would set the tone for the game, and they went on to win 42-8. However, what most impresses me is the passion that these players have for the game. Coach Hall is head coaching for the first time since 2006, and his players make his job easy because he doesn't have to ride them. They want to win. They work hard, and with 2 games left, they are 8-0.
Well, there you have it, Eric. Zane Trace still undefeated. Thanks a lot. Now, Sheridan had a rocky start to start the season, but once conference play began, they have been lights out with a 4-0 record. Tonight, they face the only other team with a perfect conference record, the TriValley Scotties. Megan Stamper joins us live from Sheridan to tell us whether the Generals or TriValley grabbed first place in the MVL.
Justin, Sheridan had the chance to take the MVL title out of TriValley's hands tonight, something that hasn't been done in the past 4 years. But in order to do that, they would have to overcome injuries and a noticeable size difference in the trenches against TriValley's front lines. And Sheridan was taking the field, ready to take down those pesky Scotties, ready to take that MVL title, and things started well for them. Trevor Davidson with this 16-yard run up the gut, but things would go sour fast for the Generals. This snap's going to go high over Dupler's head, and he's going to have to take the sack here, not going to be able to find anything. And TriValley would force them to punt. And on their next possession, McGee is going to hook up with Christian Nesbeth for a 9-yard gain to move the chains on this play, or on this drive that ate up a lot of clock. And again, McGee choosing to go through the air. He hits receiver Colin Slobodan this time for a 14-yard gain. So many weapons on that TriValley offense. And later on in this drive, Cody Collins is going to take it in from 3 yards out. That's the Scotties' first score, puts them up 7-0 late in the first quarter. And after TriValley had a commanding lead for the rest of the game, Sheridan was trying some late game heroics, but with this Trevor Davidson touchdown, put them on the board late in the fourth quarter for their first score. And another TriValley mistake here. Nathaniel Schreider picks up the fumble and takes it to the house, but it wasn't enough for Sheridan to get the win over TriValley, and the Scotties went on to win 38-14 to keep their MVL title hopes alive.
So Megan, TriValley was really sloppy with penalties. Was Sheridan able to capitalize on that?
You know, TriValley started this game with very sloppy play. They would have big pass or rush plays that would get negated by penalties, either holding, false starts, and even a targeting penalty on the Scotty defense. You know, TriValley was able to overcome their mistakes, though, and score touchdowns, and Sheridan just wasn't able to capitalize on the chances that TriValley gave them to take the lead.
So what implications does this have for the MVL now, Megan?
You know, Justin, this win keeps TriValley in the MVL title race, and it makes next week's game on the road against Maysville very interesting. If TriValley wins next week at Maysville, they'll have their 5th straight MVL title in their hands. But if Maysville is able to pull off the victory, there'll be a 3-way tie with Sheridan, Maysville, and TriValley for the MVL title. It's definitely going to be an exciting finish, to say the least, in the MVL, Justin.
Well, we haven't seen the MVL be that close in quite a few years. Megan, thanks a lot. It was another big win out there. Now, it's that time of the week for our Snapchats of the week. Here you see Justice Jenkins putting on his eye black on his quarterback, Andrew Losi, with the hashtag Senior Night. And Trumbull made it one to remember as they beat Eastern 75-12. Our second Snapchat comes from the bus of the Jackson Ironmen. Here we see a Jackson player using the caption, Megs who? Hashtag beat Megs. And man, did they ever. Jackson ran over the Marauders 47-6, and that's 2 big wins in a row now for Jackson. Logan last week, and now Megs. The Jackson Ironmen are sitting pretty for the playoffs. Now, out of all the games that we just saw, there were more than 3 plays that could have made tonight's top plays, but we've narrowed it down to these 3. Coming in at top play number 3, we have Jackson quarterback Hunter Sexton handing it off to his guy Johnny Farley, who takes it up the gut. Farley cuts to the right, and from there, he's got nothing but green grass and end zone in front of him for the 70-yard touchdown. Now over at top play number 2, we have a little trickery from Wahama. Here we have running back Jared Nutter taking the pitch, and he lets it rip to his man Ricky Bobby Kearns. No, not that Ricky Bobby. Kearns was taken down at the 1-yard line, and they would end up not scoring, so that tackle was big. South Gallia comes away with the win, 54-19. And here it is, our top play. Wellston running back Nick Cox takes the handoff, and look at the hole his line creates. He goes straight up the middle, and he gone, 89 yards, longest top play of the year, but Athens wins 50-42 in overtime. Now that Week 8 is done, we're heading into the home stretch of the regular season. These last 2 games will determine who's in and who's out of the playoffs, and there are a few must-see games coming up next week. It's been a scramble for the top of the MVL ever since Sheridan beat Maysville in Week 6. And now the Panthers will look to redeem themselves next week when they take on a TriValley team that has won the last 4 conference titles. We also have some non-conference action when the top team in the TVC Hawking takes on the first place team in the TVC Ohio. These 2 teams are the Trumbull Tomcats and Alexander Spartans. The last time Trumbull played a TVC Ohio opponent was back in Week 1 when they lost to Nelsonville, York, giving the Tomcats their first regular season loss since Week 2 of the 2012 season. Gallia Academy is looking for the upset of the year when they host the Logan Chieftains. Over in the TVC Ohio, we have 2 teams fighting to keep their playoff hopes alive. The River Valley Raiders and Athens Bulldogs have had their fair share of ups and downs this year, and next week is crucial for both teams' playoff chances. And for extra points, the Wellston Rockets will try to play spoiler when they take on Megs, and the South Gallia Rebels have a home showdown with the Southern Tornadoes. Now, like we've mentioned on the show, there's not 1 but 2 conferences that could have a 3-way tie at the end of the season. The first is the TVC Ohio with the Megs Marauders, Alexander Spartans, as well as Athens, And we also have the MVL with TriValley, Maysville, and Sheridan. So, if Maysville beats Sheridan next week, it could be a 3-way tie. Now in Week 10, we'll be revealing the 5 finalists for our Player of the Year, so be sure to tweet at us with who you think should be on that list. While you're on Twitter, give me a follow at gghost_Justin and let me know some score predictions for next week's games. And remember, there's nothing better than Friday nights and Gridiron Glory.